Welcome back to Not Alone with Melissa Sue Methvin. Today's guest is Dr. Amrita Patel. Now, she is a dentist, an author, a speaker, and has been on the council for the ADA and many other councils as well. Now, here what we're going to touch base on is going to be real, raw, and the truth. We're going to touch base on insurance, mental health, purpose, living a life of fulfillment, and so much more. So I'm going to give the floor here, Dr. Patel.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, I'm really excited this all worked out time-wise.
Yes, I know. I had it on my calendar that you'd be in town because you live in New York.
Sioux
right?
Falls for now, but New York
Okay.
soon.
Okay, New York soon. And I think we got connected just through a mutual friend. And so I'm just really curious. I really, would love to hear kind of your story, your background, and so what's on your heart to share?
I grew up in dentistry. My father's a dentist as well. He's an endodontist, and I went to dental school and I did a residency in New York and went right into practice with him. We built a group of family-owned group practices in Metro New York City. So if you're familiar with New York, it's about 30 miles straight north. Obviously biased. I think it's the best city in the world. But I was very involved with volunteer leadership within organized dentistry. And in that capacity, I chaired the New Dentist Committee for the New York State Dental Association. Got put in front of a lot of rooms of new dentists, dental students, residents, which is a pretty vulnerable population, I'd say, that sometimes gets very overlooked when it comes to support and education, because you kind of leave the environment of dental school and then kind of get thrust into the world.
Yeah, I feel they're really not prepared.
At all.
At all. For what's the
I
reality,
wasn't.
right?
Yeah, no, I wasn't, and I was in dentistry. And so, when my kind of term concluded doing that, what I realized is that I had this platform in the non-clinical part of my career, which was educating, writing, speaking. And so that's really taken off over the last few years. I think I've already taken 130 flights this year.
Wow.
I know, I did 150 last year, and I promised myself I'm not doing that again, and here we are. But so that's kind of me in a nutshell. You mentioned New York and South Dakota. We talked a little bit about that. I was sent to the South Dakota Dental Association a few years ago to do some programming. They sent their state's president-elect to pick all the speakers up at the airport, and we got married last January.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I have kind of nerdy dental association love story. So my husband is also a dentist, and so I'm kind of like immersed in all of it. But, the profession has given my family and I so much, and I recognized that there was this demographic that felt like it wasn't getting the support that it needed, and decided to take some responsibility for it.
Wow, I love that, because I feel the same way about the dental community, and that's why I'm using my voice and it is a wonderful profession that provides for your family, but also there is some awareness, right, that we need to bring to the dentist. So and especially dental student. So what did you feel that you're teaching dental students that are coming right out of school, and the reality? Because I know we had associates right out of school, and a lot of them thought, oh, great, I'm going to make this much right out of school, but they don't realize that it takes a while for us to get money from the insurance and get paid. So oftentimes my husband would loan them money until they get onto their feet, and start seeing a paycheck. So I think that's not really, taught in dental school, the reality.
Dental school is full of dentistry, right? And so there's not that much time in the curriculum left to teach all of that. And there are some schools that have been kind of trying to integrate it into the curriculum, but there's so many requirements. There's so much that you have to get through that most students are coming out $500,000-$700,000 of debt, and no real education on how to service that, right? And you talked about the cycle of getting paid, the RCM, when you send a claim, it's not instantaneous, right? And if the insurance never pays and the office never pays, you don't get paid, which are important questions and things that should be taught and that we should be asking, but no one's really talking about it.
I love that you bring that up, because I know, I could see once I sold the practice, seeing all the numbers, there was so much money that we never got back, right? Because there's a limit amount of time.
Yep, your timely filing limit.
Yes. So I think that people don't understand that
Right.
about insurance. I'd love for you to just kind of discuss that, the insurance for patients. And also, you know, what's frustrating with me with insurance as a dental hygienist is that oftentimes we can't treat the patient, the root cause, because it's so based on their insurance thing. Well, I'm only going to follow what my insurance can covers. And that's so sad to me. Coming from Canada, not saying that the way they do medical is any better because there's wait lists and all that, but it was more preventative. Whereas when I moved here stateside, everyone depends on what the insurance covers. And, I remember there was this wonderful sweet vet in my chair, and they're like, oh, well, he's not covered for this, not covered for that. And I'm like, oh, he needs an exam. He needs this. I mean, but they're like, no, the insurance doesn't cover it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of that you can't get treated,
right? And I think it's this myth, like you said, that insurance covers everything. And so for the viewers, I tell patients that dental insurance is a coupon from the 1970s. What do I mean? Well, where did it come from? It was created by large corporations in the 1970s as an incentive to attract workers. Well, what was the average annual maximum in the 1970s? $1,000? What's the average annual maximum today, right? It hasn't changed. But what I've really realized is that patients that are purchasing these plans, whether it's from a broker or as part of their orientation at a new job, they're not being explained what they're buying. So when they go in and they say, oh, I have this new job and, I didn't wear my retainers and I really want adult orthodontics. And the person in HR says, well, this plan is the most expensive. It's going to take the most money out of your paycheck, but it has adult orthodontic coverage. What they don't tell them is that adult in insurance world means 18, 21, 26. And then they come to you, and now you're the bad guy because your insurance doesn't cover that. So it's a complete lack of education sort of on both sides, but also an understanding that when you get someone that says, I just want to do what the insurance covers, to be able to explain that anytime an insurance pays out, they write it off as a loss. It flips that script, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about the investment in the oral health that they're going to make with you.
Right, so true. And seeing it, the big picture over time,
Yep.
right? So do you find a lot of practices, because I know for us in Wasilla, Alaska, so many dentists were not seeing either Medicaid, Medicare patients any longer because they were just almost not making any money, and or oftentimes we get no-shows from them a lot of times, but we accepted them. So do you find that there's a different service that dentists can utilize instead in-house to make it a little bit better for patients?
Great question. And it's one of the things that I speak on. Your in-house membership plans, I think, are so valuable, whether you are looking to transition out of network, whether you're purchasing a practice that's not maybe a network, or you realize that you just can't sort of take the best care of patients in the way you want by staying with certain plans. Having a good in-house membership plan, I think, is really key. And the thing that we realized when we implemented ours, and this is interesting, is take your average patient that you see twice a year for hygiene, x-rays, exams once a year, or exams twice a year, x-rays once a year. Maybe your doctor is doing a filling or two a year. If you look at what's really being taken out of their paycheck versus what they would have paid the office had they been enrolled in a membership plan, sometimes it's a wash. And sometimes they're actually getting more money taken out. Because what's interesting is as much as everyone is so afraid of maxing out, the data shows that it's really only like 3% of people nationally that max out. Most people aren't using the full extent of their benefits.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Actually, we would notice that, December would get so busy. I remember because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't use everything until the year rolls over.
Yep.
But they can't get in because we're busy. And most of the time, they don't utilize everything.
Right. Yeah. And so that was kind of an interesting experiment where I asked some of the patients that I was very close with or that had been with the practices for a long time, hey, do you feel comfortable sharing this with me? And we realized that was actually one of the ways that the reasons that we designed our membership plan is because it was more cost effective for them to do that. And then they didn't have to wait for a pre-auth or a denial or chasing down for a balance. It was just care when they needed it, which is really what we wanted.
Which is almost like a win for the patient, win for the dentist as well. So they don't have to wait to hear back from the insurance and get paid for the work that they provided.
Right. And you're in dental as a hygienist, your afternoon wipes out, that stinks. But now you've got people that are enrolled in a plan that they have paid for. Chances are if they've paid for something, there's
yes, they show up.
Exactly. There's a way less chance that they're
because
actually
how
going to
many
no-show.
times if it's paid, like for example, you give something free for someone, like a service, they might, for example, personal training. You're like, well, it's free.
Right.
Sometimes it might be like, well, I'm too tired, I'm not going to go.
Right.
But if you're paying high dollar, $100 for that personal training, you're going to show up.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So oftentimes I see that as well, because we'd had a lot of no-shows when it was free coverage.
Yep.
They'd have no-shows.
Yep.
But if you're paying for it, so I like that. I hope that more people kind of understand that.
Yeah.
And also because I've always felt that for our front office, because, people come angry, they have to explain their insurance, and they didn't realize what was going on. So here, I feel with this podcast, we can bring education for the patient side and dentists that are probably starting their new practice, which route to go, to start off and thinking about these options.
Yeah. And again, I love data, and the data also shows that not everyone is fee for service. And if you read dental social media, it'll have you thinking that the only path forward, the only path to be able to be successful, but also take the best care of your patients, is to be completely out of network. And the data doesn't support that. Most doctors are network with at least 3 PPO insurance plans.
I see.
Yeah.
And now where else are you helping now dentists?
Yeah. So, so much of the other programming I do is for new doctors that either are looking to buy practice, brand new practice owners is another kind of subset that I really enjoy interacting with. And then there are teams, right? Because listen, I'm only as valuable as my team, kind of the team surrounding me. I can't do what I do without the people around me. And one of the big questions that we get asked is, well, I've never been a leader before. What does that mean? I have to set my own policies. How do I make sure that what I want to get done is actually going to happen? And talking about what communication is, kind of integrating that into the culture. But again, this isn't anything that's really taught anywhere. And I think the other thing that really comes up repeatedly is everyone has their own struggles. Social media is a highlight reel of everyone's life. I have a very public, open Instagram. It used to be private. And if you go and scroll back a couple years, 2017, 18, 19, you'd see a girl that was traveling the world and involved in all sorts of leadership positions. And I was miserable, Melissa. I was miserable and unhappy with myself and felt unfulfilled and couldn't figure out what was wrong with me.
Yeah, like why were you not feeling all fulfilled, even though you were traveling the world, doing everything?
And working with my father and building a business. And, I think it was this sense of, and I am the child of immigrants. My parents are from India. I wasn't married. I didn't have children. And so inevitably, when we would be at a dental meeting and everyone was like, well, how's your kid? How's the spouse? I would be like staring at my shoes, hoping that they didn't ask me. And so then I wore really nice shoes. So hopefully the question would be, where'd you get the shoes from? That was the distraction technique.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so much of that is societal pressure. It's what you see. But again, you don't know what's going on in people's lives, right? And it took making peace with, what, I've worked really hard on my journey. I am where I am. I'm going to trust the plan. And walking that path with peace. And literally 3 days after I made that decision, I met my now husband.
Wow.
It was eerie.
Wow.
Eerie.
So once you made peace with it and allowed yourself to be like, no, I like this path. I don't have to be like what the most people say, okay, yeah, you do your career, you have kids, get married, but you're like, no, I don't have to follow this,
No. And it's hard, I think, when you're being bombarded left, right, and center with those highlight reels. And I think especially in the post-pandemic world, it's all become so front and center, right?
And you compare yourself, right?
Totally. And now everyone's lives fully are online, edited and filtered and perfect. And so it becomes even more of a burden. And so, so many of the doctors that I talk to, so many of the people that are starting this journey, that's what they come to me with. But, I'm not doing enough, or I don't feel like I'm enough, or why can't I this, or why can't I that? And a lot of it is like, okay, you need to sit with yourself and decide what you want your life to look like. I like that. Because as you know, dentists are myopic. We miss the forest for the trees all the time, right? Like trees and trees and trees, right? So that's kind of just who we are. And so I think it's hard and scary to sit with yourself and think about, what, maybe I don't want to be a practice owner. Maybe I want to move somewhere that's new, right? Maybe I want to go back home.
Maybe I don't want to be a dentist anymore.
Maybe I don't want to be a dentist anymore. Right?
Which is so scary for so many.
Yeah, maybe I want to explore what else I can do with my degree other than just being a practice owner. Because just because you own a practice, that doesn't automatically make you successful, right? Or validate you. And that piece is hard. And as people that are myopic and often very type A and used to being in control, sitting and letting your control go and letting your guard down with your thoughts is scary.
It's so scary.
So scary.
I always say that. I said, spend time, because I have a practice in the morning of meditation. I need at least an hour before I'm with my family, just in stillness, in my peace, in my breath work, in my prayer practice, whatever that is. So what does that look like for you when you say sit in stillness for you?
Yeah. I think personally for me, my brain is always going at 100 miles a minute. And so it is very helpful to get it on paper. What's concerning me? What is on my plate for today that I think is going to be a challenge? What do I need help with? Which was hard because I can do everything, right? I can't. What do I need help with? And a practice that's really helped me is when I start to feel very overwhelmed, I take an 8x11 sheet of paper and fold it in half the long way. On the left-hand side, I write down everything that I'm doing right now that's making me feel that way. And on the right-hand side, I put down everyone or everything that could be doing it better than me. And I oftentimes find out that I've taken on things that have been delegated to other people that I'm not making sure are doing it, or maybe things that could be a priority, but not right now, like important, but doesn't need to be handled right now, And it helps me to organize my thoughts and my life in that way. But it's an exercise that I do weekly, sometimes daily, and it really helps.
I can see that. I always tell people writing it down, but you're right, prioritizing, right?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, my publisher, actually, when I was writing my book and, the editing process, I know you wrote a book as well. It's so daunting sometimes, but she's like, leave the dishes, leave the laundry, those are not important. This is important right now. Focus on that. Or is it spending one-on-one time with your, a family member, or connecting with you for a little bit, just prioritizing. I think writing gets you, especially for the logical mind, seeing it clearly, like, okay, here's my list.
Yep.
Where can I cross them off? Where can I delegate? I like that.
Yeah, that's been really helpful. And, one of our gym coaches said something interesting to me the other day. He said, most of us are actually introverts. And I was like, well, how can that be? Like, you're in these crowded classes, engaging, interacting. And he said, well, extroverts charge their batteries socially around other people, and introverts charge their batteries.
That's me.
Yeah, by themselves. And I was like, I never thought of it that way. Oh, okay. And so again, that kind of looking at yourself and figuring out, what are the priorities? What do you want your life to look like? Who are you? What are your values? And it doesn't need to be on anyone else's timeline, right? Society, the profession, the world, and being okay with that is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard because, as you said, a lot of times for anyone, not just dentists, starting out their career, you have the pressures of being out of school. Now I better go make money. And they want to grind and grind and grind and grind. But all the times you'll hit a wall. Yeah. Right? You'll hit a wall.
Yeah. And then you're no use to anyone.
Yeah.
Right? And you're completely drained. And now what? Right? You still have to give of yourself, especially in this profession. Yes. And at some point you've depleted. And then what?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, you kind of lose your light, your passion, and probably not treat your patients the same, right?
Or your loved ones.
Your loved ones,
right? I mean, I know I can be a real raging monster when I haven't had time to sort of decompress or eat.
Yes, which in dentistry, you don't have time to eat.
No. What does my husband call it? Hangry? Like,
yeah. I know when I've got full day, and then I know my husband, he'd have 3 columns back to back, and you're going around and you want to delegate so much time with each patient, but you don't have time to eat.
No. And you physically can't be in that many places at once and also take care of yourself. So it's very hard. And this is a challenging time to enter our profession, and also I think for our profession, because I don't think you can take care of anyone else until you've taken care of yourself.
Yeah. So how do you find dentists can incorporate that? Like, I know I'm trying to coach, dentists to maybe incorporate just nervous system reset throughout the day, some breath techniques, or even let's say you had a patient in your chair and you do a couple breath techniques before you do surgery or procedure. If you can calm their nervous system, that's going to be best because you're so close.
Yeah, you're right there.
You're right there.
Yeah.
I love this company called Wallaby.
The blanket.
The weighted blanket. I almost I had an appointment the other day and my dentist, I'm like, I wanted to bring it just to kind of test it out because my kids love their weighted blankets.
Okay.
And so if, so many people come in with fear and anxiety, but if you could put on this blanket, on them and just calm their nervous system, then they can heal better.
Yep.
What happens to your blood vessels and everything else, your nerve for healing. If you're in fight and flight,
right,
you're not going to heal properly.
Right. That stressed out state.
Yes.
No, totally. Well, guilty, I maybe buy shoes in between stressful patients. Expensive habits. No, but what I tell people is that recharging and unplugging looks different for everyone, right? So for when I log on social media at 5 a.m., which I probably shouldn't be doing that early, if someone has already gone and done a half marathon and is drinking their green juice, that stresses me out. Like, that's great for you that you are committed and that's how you kind of recharge, but I can't, right? And for the longest time, I was like, oh, I need to be a morning exercise person. I need to make my celery juice. And if I haven't done that, my day is going to be a failure. Figure out what it is, right? Sometimes for some people, it's sitting with their thoughts, right? You're journaling, exercise. I mean, I think there was that huge study that was just released where like, exercise is the single biggest predictor aside from good relationships of longevity, right? The deadlifts you do at 30 help you pick up the suitcase at 80 is what I read somewhere. Whatever that is, reconnecting with family if you're far away, or like I said, carving out time to even just go for a walk. It doesn't have to be anything strenuous, and connecting with your thoughts and nature around you is important. For the people that tell me that they don't have time to do that in the morning or the evening, do it at your lunch break.
Yeah.
One of your patients cancels, that stinks. Go take a walk around the parking lot. Yeah. I used to do laps around the grocery store parking lot as my car charged. I mean, it's just whatever, right?
Yeah, switching something else instead of strolling, like you said, which is, keep comparing yourself. It's causing more anxiety.
Yep.
And it's hard because now we're both very much more involved on social media, but I have to be mindful of like, okay, a little bit a time, but take away so I'm not comparing, because that causes an anxiety. Yeah. So removing that, and what I notice as far as nature time, especially when we live in very busy cities, like you were in New York, now coming back, even though it's Gilbert, it's still busy. I was just on this private island, filming a documentary series, and it's so much stillness, so much clarity. And I was such a peace. You're, by the ocean, grounding every day, doing nervous system reset there every single day. So I noticed it when I flew back here. I'm in my home. I felt so anxious almost. I need to get out. And I remember telling my kids, okay, we're going to go on a hike. Mom needs nature. And there's something about that, just going back into nature, just to kind of find kind of regulate your nervous system again. Yeah,
my husband is way better at that than I am. He hiked Camelback this morning because it's across the street.
Oh, I love it.
He loves that. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get up my hands and knees and climb up the mountain. But, I'll walk, do loops around the golf course or whatever it is. But that's what I tell people, that, don't feel guilty because other people are recharging or unplugging in a different way than you. Figure out what works for you. And that's, again, different for everyone.
Yeah. And I'd like to kind of pivot back to how you met your husband. Was at the point where you had to be at a place where that self-love, you had to be okay with being you.
Yep.
And it's so interesting because that's kind of my path too. The more that I was at a place where I was no longer kind of lonely, I was just at peace with myself, at such a good place. I just had finished my book. And literally that's how I met my boyfriend afterwards. So I kept on going, and literally will just happen in the right time, but you almost, that right time, a lot of time is that self-reflection where you're kind of at peace with yourself. Yep.
And it's hard to kind of appreciate the value of that, but also believe that that's true. And I know I mentioned this to you earlier, but one of the things that I always go back to is Steve Jobs, right? Went to Stanford, dropped out, right? Founded Apple, got kicked out of Apple, founded Pixar, came back. We all know his story. He did a commencement speech in 2005, and he talks about 3 lessons that he wants to kind of impart to the audience. And one of the things he says is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to believe in, something, your gut, karma, whatever it is, that when you connect the dots, they're going to connect somewhere, right? But you can only connect them that way. And it's so impactful, right? To think that, had I gotten married earlier or had children or been a practice owner by myself and not worked for my father, in which case I could not have just gotten up and moved to South Dakota, right? That would have been things that I would have had to handle, and I would have had responsibilities. Whereas in my journey, like I told you in the late 2010s, I was sitting there being like, well, all these other people are doing this. Why not me? Why not me? Why not me? And now I turn around and everything lined up like the way it was meant to.
Yeah.
Right. And so just believing in that, I think, is very powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Just believing in the process and trusting that that's the way you're going to be going.
Correct.
And
correct. And, so much validation I think we seek from other people and in other things. And when you start to realize that nothing is going to be able to give you validation like you're going to be able to give yourself, right? I think it releases a lot of tension and stress.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, if I think back on my kids, they need so much of my validation.
Yep.
Their teachers' validations, their friends. Like my son, he'll be like, oh my gosh, wow, he plays flag football. I want to just work out more and be buff because I want to be really fast for my team and I want to be really good. But I said, well, you are good, but you have to believe that yourself and not wait for the outside validation. I think that trickles up from like childhood to adulthood. We so want to be validated. I know for me, being young 20-year-old woman, I so wanted validation from men, like, oh, feel attractive, feel this. But I had to feel attractive and beautiful and smart and but not seek that from everybody else. And that's a hard lesson, I think, for life. For many it's a lifetime, right? And what's the alternative, right? The alternative is decisions that I would have made that maybe would have aligned me with what society was doing or what I thought I should be doing, but ultimately would not have led me to the place that I'm at now. Probably more of a lonely life, right? Like you said, not fulfilled, right?
This just angel of a man. I mean, I think about the me 10 years ago, and I wish I could go back and tell that girl, like, it's going to be okay. Yes. It's going to be okay and it was so hard, Melissa, to keep up that facade. And I hope that my story, when I tell it, integrated into the knowledge that I give around the country, especially to those newer doctors, resonates with someone, because that was hard. And I wish I would have given myself grace and been kind to myself. Yeah, kind to yourself. Well, yeah, those new grads too. I've met a couple as well at a retreat that we did in Sedona. 7 dentists went up there. We did breath work, nervous system reset, and being able to guide them throughout their process once they get into practice and making sure they make time for themselves throughout that process, and who they can maybe find community like yourself that can guide them along, that have done it and what's worked for you. And I think that's so important. Do you have like a group, where at this point, or? I don't. I'm frankly just kind of all over the country. I think most people do connect with me via social media or sort of in person, which has been really, really great. But, I'd like to sort of make it more official. I just, at this point, like to be as open and accessible as I can. So at the end of my lectures, I give out my personal cell phone number. I give out my personal contact information, because I think I didn't have that, and people would be like, well, you have your dad. And I said, no, but this is the person that I've been trying to get validation from for my entire life. That's very different, right? That's not someone I'm going to go to and be like, Dad, I feel like I'm not good enough because I haven't gotten married yet. Because I was always afraid that he'd turn around and be like, well, yeah, why, because I'm sure they were getting the same questions too from their friends. Yes, like, okay, you're the oldest daughter, right? Yes. Like, what's she doing? But that, like I said, that's sort of what I try to do. And I would tell anyone that watches this, that maybe feels the same way that I did, that there's a path. You're on a journey, and everyone's journey is different and unique, which makes it beautiful. And don't ever let anyone or anything make you feel less than just because your journey doesn't align with theirs, right? Not every doctor is out there killing it and making millions of dollars, right? Not everyone is buying offices right out of kind of dental school. Everyone's on their own journey. And if you even look at my social media, I mean, there's so much that went on behind the scenes for me to get to be where I am. But it's just a continuously evolving journey, right? I'd like to say that I am trying to be teachable, because that's what I tell people to do. You just don't know what you don't know. And you learn from everyone you meet. So. Oh, yeah. I keep learning all the time. And that's why I love reading books, podcasts, because I feel even last week with these 15 authors, also gifted in different ways, I felt like I was the best university. I learned from so many of them, and I will continue to learn and grow. And in that same way, it's okay that I'm very different. Actually, the theme of last week was everyone was like, oh, we feel like we're really weird on the outside of this group. But finding your community, finding the people is so important, that can help guide you along when you're, that could be clouded over. Yeah. And, both of my best friends from middle school live in California. And I am fortunate in that I actually talk to them probably most days. and one in particular on the phone, I think every day. And it's been, 18 years since the first year of dental school, and it doesn't matter kind of where we are, we've maintained that connection. But if you see someone that's doing something that's interesting, reach out, right? If you meet someone at an event or socially or wherever, introduce yourself. The worst that they can say if you're asking a question or want to have a conversation is no. But best case, you get to learn from their successes and their failures.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which is so important.
Yeah.
How did they get to the top? And when they fell through, so many people have burnouts trying to grow their business. And so they're now sharing their story, which I think is so important, right?
Yep.
To not get to that point.
I'm glad that it's happening more now because it wasn't before. It wasn't in the late 2010s when I was feeling that way, or even when I graduated dental school in 2011. It wasn't as prominent as it is now. And I think as terrible as the pandemic was and is, that's kind of where this all came from. The sense of, hey, we're all stuck behind a screen. So people started to share and then sometimes overshare, which was bad, but also good, right? There was so many great podcasts. There was so much great programming that was born out of that because that was the only way we had to connect, right? And dentistry specifically is so relational. It's like a half a degree of separation, all of us.
Yes.
And so I think that in that sense, it was really good and has brought a lot of this into everyone's focus.
Yeah, instead of like being competing against each other, more how we can collaborate, which we see that a lot now with, the group practices and DSOs and different options out there now for dentists are feeling that they're doing it all on their own. Well, maybe they can kind of partnerships and whatnot. So.
Yeah. And, I think that goes back to there's lots of ways to be successful in this profession, and not all of them involve solo practice ownership. Kind of like what was thought before. Not all of them involve even practice ownership, right? There's plenty of dentists that do really, really well, are very accomplished in their own right, and they've found their own path. But remember, success and accomplishment means different things to everyone, right? So what I think is me having a successful day is probably different than what you do, right? So measuring it that way, I think, is probably the wrong metric. But there's so many paths with this degree and in this profession, no matter what degree you have.
No matter what. But I like that, finding your own purpose, and that gives you that light, that fire that ignites you, but you have to almost, like you said, write it down. Like what brings you that light? Like for me, be able to give back to people and shine their light, be able to see their confidence and that they can write a book, they can start a podcast, they can achieve whatever they want, and I'll be there to cheer them on. Like that gives me so much light, be able to provide them hope as well, when they're kind of in the dark, because I know how that is. When you're in the dark, it's like you can't see the love that's around you. You can't see the next step forward. It's so overwhelming. So to be able to hold someone's hand and shine a little bit of that beacon of light for me, gives me, fire, almost like energy.
It's their purpose. And, I remember when I first met my now husband, and he was married for 25 years, he's got adult children, and just being like, you seem like you have it all. Like, I'm so confused because I, again, was in that place where I thought, okay, I'm good. This is my path. But it was just very jarring to me. And then when he kind of explained his path, and he got married very young, and, like many people do, they just kind of grew apart. And I was like, I don't understand. And he was like, well, a relationship, you have to water it, right? It's like a flower. It'll die if you don't water it and nurture it. And he said, look, I knew that I was doing great things in the profession and the community. I was a good dad. I thought I was a good husband. And the person that I wanted to be my partner, the person that I wanted to celebrate the joys and also work through the failures with, I didn't have that. And I was like, you know what, that's an interesting concept. And I was like, that means that all the people I've been comparing myself to and all of the relationships I've been like, oh gosh, I wish I had that.
Yes, idealized, right?
Like,
yes.
Oh, and he was like, yeah, you would have never known. This was my high school sweetheart. This is the first person I dated. You never know.
Yeah, you would never know.
Never.
Well, that's like for me, we often use the cover of my book, that picture for advertising, and you think of it, picture perfect family, we got a boy and a girl, but I know where we were at then. I was so lonely. My husband was very depressed, but a lot of people are like, oh, look at them. They're doing fantastic in the dental practice and they travel, and we don't know, right? So that's why comparison is the worst. And you're right, with the relationship, you have to so nurture it. Oftentimes we get busy growing our business or with our children, but we forget to kind of connect in a relationship and water that relationship. So was that scary for you to kind of decide to get married then,
Oh, yeah. Well, and, I was older, whatever that means. And so I had my own identity and I had my own life and my own priorities. And so it was scary and hard to say, or, you know, to think about, okay, so what happens when I put someone else first? Because I was first all the time. And what does that look like? And does that make me vulnerable? Melissa, is he going to take advantage of it? You know, is he going to leave me? And to this day, I will sometimes be like, why do you love me? And he'll look at me and be like, what is your trauma? Like, what is that? Where is that coming from? And it happens less and less, and it's taken a lot to work through. But to answer your question, yes, it was scary, and it was very much like, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Like almost too good to be true, right?
1,000%.
Yes,
He proposed like 3 months after we started dating, and we got married a year later. And it was scary and hard to say, I'm going to be vulnerable and honest and real with you, and you're not going to hurt me or take advantage of me or, you know, try to tear me down for it. That was hard.
Like, the fear of like, oh, he might leave me. It was too good to be true. Like, you know, almost self-sabotaging, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because then I was like, well, geez, I mean, if this is what your relationship was like what chance do we have, right? Like, or, you know, if everyone's really kind of, or most people have this facade, that was hard. And like I said, you know, a partnership very much to me is like, look, sometimes I'll carry 80% and all you can give is 20, right? Sometimes maybe you're doing all the heavy lifting because I can't. And it's that back and forth. And that was hard.
Yeah.
And
a lot of it is probably communicating those fears, right?
Yep.
Communicating, having those hard communications.
Yep.
I know I can relate so much to this, you know, going back into a relationship that was really hard and a lot of fearful, like, well, too good to be true, or I don't know. Or for me, it was a lot losing my freedom, you know, losing kind of like, oh, where I'm at now with my family, I'm doing good, and what that looks like as well. You know, am I going to lose that freedom, that peace, that calm?
Mm-hmm.
But just allowing to release those fears, you know, it takes constant work and communication in a relationship as well.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, we call it use your words. Use your words.
Use your words. I like that.
He was like, listen, I never did in my marriage. I, you know, just kind of assumed that this was as good as it was going to get, and that everyone was kind of plodding along the way I was. And so I just stopped using my words. And he was like, you make me use my words. Yes. And so now he'll call me out and be like, all right, use your words. You don't need to solve this problem by yourself.
I like that.
But, you know, in the last few years, right, I've come to Sioux Falls. We're going back to New York. Just a big period of flux and trust. And that's still hard. Yes. It's still a work in progress. And is I think, part of the journey. It's part of the learning and the growth that, you know what, letting your walls down, letting someone else in, giving up some control, being raw and honest, especially as a dentist who's used to being in control and used to being the leader, is always going to be hard for me. Yes. You know, but that's a me thing.
And perfectionist, you know, you work on minute little.
I've already ordered the markers in the right color to write the addresses on the packing boxes for boxes that aren't due to be shipped until March. But, you know, that's a me thing. And I've also learned, just kind of personally and professionally, you don't project onto other people, right? You don't get in your head and go 0 to 100 and assume the worst all the time.
It sounds like he's very much part of that growth of you, to letting go the control. But you also, he gives you that sense of safety, almost that peace, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jeff is my best friend, and being married to my best friend is such a fun journey. Right? So we can hang out and tease each other and, you know, play with the dog and kind of goof off. But then we can also have, you know, date night or quiet time together, or be in a big group or not. So I wake up every day thankful that I waited. And like I said, I wish I could go back and tell that girl, it's going to be okay. You don't have to kick yourself this much. Oh,
I love that. I almost get all goosebumps when you say that, because oftentimes when I, you know, do breath work, I always say, go back to that little girl, you know, sit beside her. What would you say to her? Or let her talk. Does she have something to say? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, what would she say to you now, you know?
You know, I think she'd say that she was scared. I was scared. It's scary.
Scared to be alone?
Scared to be alone, scared to let anyone else in, scared to get hurt again, scared that I wasn't going to be enough. But I think what I would tell her is that everyone's on their own journey, and what you think is reality is probably not, right? Or is probably not the way it looks. And it's okay to be scared now, but trust your path and your journey. And Melissa, when I tell you it lined up perfectly, I mean, New York City girl and South Dakota boy were two people that were never supposed to meet, right? Like we were never going to meet. And we had crossed paths at so many dental meetings before where he was there and I was there, but 3,000 other people were too, right? Like a Chicago Midwinter or an ADA. And so the way that it all came together lined up perfectly. And like I said, if I could go back and sit with that girl, I think she would probably tell me she was scared. And I would tell her that she's got to walk this journey because it's the one that she's on.
Yeah, and
trust
probably
that process.
keep trust the process and keep trusting her heart, what she wants to do, right?
Right. Yeah, like, you know, you're not going to marry this person or this relationship isn't going to work out or
don't try to force it,
right.
you know?
Or like you don't need to go and buy your own practice, right? Or, you know, the time that you're taking out to give back to your profession, that's a good idea because that was the platform and the springboard for now the non-clinical portion of my career where I get to, you know, write and educate all around the country.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic because I think for women, especially they're wanting to be you know, build their career, that they think of the ticking clock for kids too, and that pressure. And sometimes they're like, well, I'm with this person, I'm 30 something. Yep. Well, I'm just going to have children with this just man, to be honest, like that's, you know, happens often, might not be the right person, but because of the clock and everything else. But if we could just release that and just trust, they might've met that perfect, you know, that match for them. That's a bit more calm and more aligned with their values, you know, if they just kind of trusted.
Yeah. And, you know, not just a romantic partner, but also, you know, business partners, colleagues, friends.
Yes.
And I think from every negative experience, there's always something to be learned. Absolutely. There's always something to be learned. And I wish I could go back and give that girl some confidence.
Yeah, some confidence. Oh gosh, yes, me too.
Yeah, right? Like you are enough. Yes. Like look at yourself in the mirror when you wake up. You are beautiful. You know, you are intelligent enough. And there's nothing that you have to prove to anyone else but yourself. Yeah, so important. Yeah. I love that message. Now, just to kind of go back to, you know, the councils, the ADA and all that. Are you seeing them being more open to talking about mental health in the dental profession? You know, I think maybe not on a national level, but I think it's happening a lot more grassroots just because there are so many things that the Dental Association nationally is doing in terms of preserving and protecting our profession, as well as trying to helping us take the best care of our patients possible. I do see some of it, but most of the movement I see is more grassroots. It's locally, it's statewide, it's in smaller group settings. And sometimes I think, honestly, for me, that's the biggest ROI, right? Like that's where I get to have the best conversations. That's where people feel the most safe. Okay. And that I do see increasing.
So you do see it coming into the school programs?
I think the schools have become more open to allowing conversations, especially from people coming in with some of these state dental associations or student groups kind of hosting things. I do see that, but I still think that it's going to be very challenging to make sure that that specific demographic is protected and educated in the right way, which is, like I said, frankly, why I keep doing what I'm doing, you know, some of what you're doing as well. And I do see a lot more people taking responsibility for that, which is very empowering to me. And, you know, when I get up in front of an audience, I tell them the best gift that I could ever get is if you turn around and now you're in front of the audience, right? We go 5 years down the line and now it's you. Because I'm not going to do this forever.
Yes.
So, you know, empowering, passing the baton right in the dental office, right?
Yes.
But same thing, right? Passing that off and hopefully kind of fostering that sense of your story is valuable. You can do this too. Let's kind of continue that chain.
Let's continue that. Yeah. I like that. Well, that's beautiful. And so how can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm super accessible on Instagram. It's Dr. Amrita Patel. I do have a LinkedIn. I have a Facebook. My best friend from dental school that I mentioned to you and I are starting a podcast.
Ooh, you are.
We are. It's called
that's exciting.
Project Confidence, DENTS.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Dr. Diana Nguyen is her name. She came up with the name and she is just brilliant. So she is the chair of pre-doc clinics at UCSF. Okay. I'm very proud of her. And she has been by my side since the first day of orientation of dental school. Wow. Her last name is N, mine is P. So we were sitting across from each other over our mannequin heads. And, you know, like I said, she's just been by my side through the last 18 years of life. And so we are going to be launching shortly. But what we realized is that, you know, the conversations that we've had through our journey, kind of private practice, associateship, academia, her husband was in the military, you know, organized dentistry, all of it. These conversations we're having would probably be valuable for others to hear. And so we kind of polled our audiences and got a lot of positive feedback, especially from that 0 to 5 year out group, which, like I said, I think is probably the one that needs a lot of this information the most. And so we're going to record it kind of conversationally as a conversation between two best friends. And we're going to be launching shortly. So we're really excited. Project Confidence.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to share it and listen to it. I think that's definitely very needed.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming.
for having me.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And so where's your next speaking? Where are you going?
I am going to upstate New York in a few weeks to do a women's event where we're going to be talking patient communication, time management, conflict resolution. And then 5 days later, I will be in Las Vegas with the Nevada Dental Association.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
doing
I'm sure I'll
much
see
of
you
the
at
same.
one of them at some point. Yeah. That'd be fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us. And if you feel that episode could reach somebody else that you know, please share and like and subscribe. And we'll see you soon.